Some people are known for the roles they play, others are remembered for the weight they carry. Chris Evans became a symbol of strength for an entire generation, not because he was loud, but because he stood still when it mattered. Because leadership, in its truest form, is quiet, grounded, and human. Behind the shields, the stages, and the expectations, there is a man who values simplicity over spectacle. A man who believes that integrity is louder than fame, and that real power comes from knowing when to step back. This house is not built for a superhero. It's built for the man who carried one and then chose peace. Every arrival here is deliberate. The road slows you down. The house waits. Chris Evans arrives not to be seen, but to disappear. From noise, from pressure, from the world. The moment he steps inside, the world softens. The air carries the scent of pine and earth. Sound fades into silence. This home doesn't try to impress Chris Evans. It understands him. Stone, wood, glass. Materials chosen not for trend, but for truth. Chris Evans lives by values that don't expire, and neither does this house. Everything here is honest, grounded, and meant to last. The living space opens wide, but never feels empty. It's built for connection, not performance. This is where Chris Evans rests, where silence is welcome, where conversations linger long after the fire fades. Glass walls slide away, and nature steps inside. Forest air moves freely through the room. For Chris Evans, strength isn't isolation. It's harmony, with the land, with the moment, with himself. The kitchen is warm, human, alive. Not a showroom, but a gathering place. Chris Evans cooks to connect, to slow time, to turn simple moments into shared memories. Behind the public image lives a quiet mind. This is where Chris Evans thinks, reads, reflects. No audience, no armor, just space to be human again. The bedroom offers release. Simple lines, soft light. After carrying strength for the world, this is where Chris Evans chooses gentleness. Wellness here isn't about extremes. It's about balance. Water, heat, breath, stillness. A reminder to Chris Evans that caring for himself is not a weakness. It's discipline. As night falls, the house glows quietly. It doesn't demand attention. It simply exists. Because the greatest luxury Chris Evans could ever afford is peace. Long before this house existed, there were moments that defined him. Moments when Chris Evans stepped into a role that would echo across a generation. On screen, he became a symbol. Not because of power, but because of principle. Again and again, he stood at the center of chaos, choosing what was right over what was easy. You can almost feel those triumphs woven into this home. The clarity of space reflects the clarity he carried as Captain America. Open lines, strong foundations, nothing hidden, nothing false. There is a gallery-like corridor where light moves slowly across the walls. Not a museum, not a shrine, but a quiet acknowledgement of a journey. Here, the story of the Avengers lives not in spectacle, but in emotion. Chris Evans remembers the battles not for the explosions, but for the moments in between. The silence before the charge, the weight of responsibility, the resolve to stand alone if necessary. In this house, strength is visualized through restraint, wide windows framing endless horizons, like the moments he stood facing impossible odds, high ceilings that breathe, reminding him how it felt to carry the world and still stand tall. There's a room designed for reflection, where shifting light creates moving shadows on stone. It feels almost cinematic, a place where Chris Evans can revisit the triumph of endurance, leadership, sacrifice, not as a hero, but as a man who gave everything to a role and then chose to let it go. The Avengers were about unity. This home reflects that same idea. Spaces flowing together, no hard borders, no isolation. Every room connected, every path intentional. And just as Captain America laid down the shield, this house is where Chris Evans lays down the weight of legacy, not erasing it, honoring it quietly. Because triumph isn't about holding on forever. It's about knowing when you've done enough and having a place worthy of who you became along the way. And when the night finally settles, the house grows still. No cameras, no applause, no expectations. This is where the roles fade and only the man remains, where the weight of legacy softens into something lighter, something earned. Chris Evans doesn't come here to remember who he was on screen. He comes here to remember who he is. The house stands quietly beside him, not as a monument to success, but as a reflection of a life lived with integrity, restraint, and heart. Because true triumph isn't found in the battles you win or the symbols you carry. It's found in the peace you create when the world finally lets you go. And in this place, surrounded by nature, silence, and honesty, Chris Evans is finally home.